Welcome back to today's lesson on CRS 001. So, in our previous lesson, we considered the rise of prophecy in Israel, where we considered early prophets such as Moses, Samuel, and Joshua. So, today we'll be looking at the characteristics of these prophets, starting with the first one, which is divine calling. Now, the early prophets were called by God to serve as his messengers. So, the divine calling can be viewed as one of the characteristics of the prophets. Another characteristic is direct communication with God. Now, these early prophets, or these prophets that are considered to be the early prophets that led the rise of prophecy in Israel, received direct revelations, visions, or auditions from God. And we also have courage and conviction, which can be viewed as a characteristic of a prophet. Courage and conviction in the sense that the prophet spoke truth to power, confronting sin and injustice with courage and conviction. We also have faithfulness as another characteristic, whereby the prophets remained faithful to God's message even in the face of opposition or adversity. And we have intercessory roles, whereby the prophets often interceded on behalf of the people, praying for God's mercy and forgiveness. We have example of this intercessory role in the aspect of Samuel. Yes, in the aspect of Samuel. Another characteristic is guidance and direction. Then we have symbolic action. For the guidance and direction, the prophets provided um direction and guidance to the people, helping them to navigate complex situations or difficult situations in life. Then we have the symbolic action, like I mentioned earlier, whereby the prophet often or sometimes perform symbolic actions to illustrate God's message or to convey a specific truth. Now we've looked at the characteristics of the prophet. Let's quickly look at them again. Let's highlight them. One of the characteristics is the divine calling. The second one is direct communication with God. The third is courage and conviction. The fourth is faithfulness. The fifth is intercessory role. And the sixth and seventh. For the sixth, we have guidance and direction. And the seventh, symbolic action. Let's move on, please. Let's now look at the roles of these prophets. We've looked at the characteristics of these prophets. Now, looking at the roles of these prophets. The roles of these prophets can be viewed as one, they acted as God's messenger in conveying the divine will of God to the people. Secondly, they acted as intercessors, which can also be viewed as a characteristic of prophet and also a role of the prophet, because they prayed on behalf of the people, seeking God's mercy and forgiveness. Thirdly, they were like criticizers. They acted as criticizers because prophets critiqued the social, moral, and spiritual conditions of the people, calling them to accountability and repentance. Then we have leaders, because the prophets acted or served as leaders in guiding the people in times of crisis or transitions. They also acted as forth-teller, because they spoke God's truth to the people, declaring his will and intentions for their life. So now these are the roles of the early prophets. Now let's highlight them one after the other. One, they acted as God's messengers. Two, they acted as intercessors. Three, they acted as moral reformers. Four, advisors to the king. And five, they acted as foretellers. I'll see you in the next lesson. Thank you very much for listening.